So you've just finished beginning Greek and you might be wondering, well, what now? So in this video, I'm going to give you 5 steps to help you achieve fluency in the Greek New Testament. Hi there, I'm Daryl Burning, creator of Master New Testament Greek, and each week I help people like you master the Greek of the New Testament. If that sounds like you, then go ahead and subscribe to this channel, and I look forward to being a blessing and helping you in your quest. So maybe you've just finished a course at seminary, maybe you've worked through a beginning Greek grammar, and you're asking, well, what now? Well, here is 5 things that I want to encourage you to do to continue to grow into the fact so that you can actually read the Greek New Testament. So here's the first one. First, recognize that you still don't know Greek. Now, there's a good chance that the way you're feeling right now is kind of overwhelmed, because when you first get to the end of beginning Greek, it's pretty common for students to not feel like they actually know enough. So often they will go back and they will reread the beginning Greek course, or they'll reread the beginning Greek book or something like that. But recognize this, that this is normal, right? And you still don't know Greek. Beginning Greek is not the end of your journey, but the beginning. See, the goal is, and we'll talk about goals in a minute, the goal is to read the New Testament in the original languages, but there's still a lot to learn. There's still vocabulary to learn. There's still grammatical categories to learn. There's syntax to learn. There's new, familiarity just with the way the language is constructed that you can still grow in, right? And so in other words, don't stop learning Greek. Don't put aside your task because you've finished beginning Greek. There's still a lot to learn. And Greek is not something you can just learn and you're done. I mean, you talk to any New Testament professor and they will tell you that they're still learning things in Greek, because this is the truth, right? Language is a lifelong pursuit. Doesn't matter what the language is, even English, right? My native language is English and I'm still learning things about the English language all these years on. So language is always a lifelong pursuit. There's new ways to express yourself, new expressions to learn, all these different things. So just because you've finished beginning Greek does not mean you're done with Greek. There's still a lot to learn. So that's the first thing. Know and recognize that there's a lot to learn. Secondly, set a clear goal for your knowledge of Greek. Now, a lot of people, when they finish beginning Greek, they don't have a clear goal. In fact, even people who finish seminary, they will leave seminary and they don't have a goal of their own for Greek. So ask yourself this question: why did you learn Greek? Why did you do beginning Greek? Why did you go to seminary? Was it to do exegesis so you could do that well? Was it to be able to read the Greek New Testament fluently? Was it to be able to read broadly in Koine Greek throughout, the Apostolic Fathers and the Septuagint as well as the New Testament? Whatever it was, right? Focus on that. Write that down. In fact, most people, I don't know if you know this, but if you write your goal down, you are 40%, just that one act makes you 40% more likely to actually achieve that goal than if you don't. So write it down somewhere and then think through, how can I achieve that goal? What is my plan for getting there? And focus on achieving that end, right? And this is the thing. So many people, they go to seminary, they learn Greek, but they don't have a clear goal. And so they drift and they don't actually go much further. And so I want to encourage you, have a clear goal for your knowledge of the Greek. So first of all, recognize there's still a lot to learn. Secondly, have a clear goal for your knowledge of Greek. Thirdly, keep working on your vocabulary. And again, this is important. You cannot read without vocabulary. It doesn't matter what the language is. If you go and pick up an academic textbook in a field you're not familiar with, you're going to come across vocabulary that you don't know. You're not going to understand what you're reading. It's just that simple. And the same applies with Greek as well. You can't read without vocabulary. And when you finish beginning Greek, you're probably going to know the words that occur 50 times or more in the New Testament. That counts to around about 330 words. Now, 330 words by any linguist standard is nowhere near enough to say you know the words of that language. In fact, linguists will say that you don't even start to scratch the surface until you know about 1,000 words. And really 3,000 words is much closer. And so based on where you're going, you need to have a guide to how much vocabulary you need to know. So if you're going to learn exegesis, then you probably want to learn the words that occur in the New Testament down to about 10 or 15 occurrences. And that will give you a pretty good grasp on, enough of the New Testament to be able to muddle your way through it. Now, if you're wanting to read the New Testament, then I really want to encourage you just to be able to read, right? read a Tyndale Greek New Testament that's got no footnotes, no reader's edition. So be independent of those, so you're not dependent on the tools. That's what fluency in the New Testament at least amounts to. If you want to be able to read more broadly, then you'll need to know more than the words that are in the New Testament. But again, this sounds onerous and it sounds difficult, but it's actually not as hard as you might think. But the key thing here is to keep working on your vocabulary. If you stop working on your vocabulary, if you can't be bothered with vocabulary, you are going to lose your Greek. It's just no other way around it, because if you don't know the words, you don't know the language. So at least have a goal to maintain your vocabulary. So keep reviewing your flashcards and do that on a regular basis. But better is build your vocabulary so that you get to the goal that you are aiming for. So keep working on your vocabulary. So number 1, recognize there's still a lot to learn. Number 2, have a goal and work toward achieving that goal. Number 3, keep working on your vocabulary. You will need to keep doing that. And number 4, work through an intermediate Greek grammar. Now, even if you went through something like Mounce's Basics of Biblical Greek or Rod Decker's Reading Koine Greek, both of which are fantastic textbooks, and I encourage you to use those, they have in them uses of, say, the nominative. They'll talk about the predicate nominative. They'll talk about, genitive absolutes. They'll explain these things and how they're used, but chances are that you won't remember those things when you finish beginning Greek. And so I want to encourage you to get an intermediate Greek grammar, something like this one here by Mathewson and Emig, which is pretty short. It's a few hundred pages, and just start reading through it, and do that slowly. Don't read it quickly. Just read a few pages every day. Understand what they're getting at. It's going to explain to you how the tenses work, how the voices work, the cases, and how the moods are used, so that you can see how the New Testament authors construct sentences. And this is going to give you a lot more flexibility and ability within the language. And so read this, take a book like that, read it slowly through an intermediate, read slowly through an intermediate grammar like this, let it build your knowledge, and then look up the references. So every one of these will have examples. Look at those examples. Go to your New Testament and look up those examples and identify what they're teaching you. And if they refer to other grammars, consider looking at those other grammars as well to see another explanation. Because often one grammar will say things one way and you'll be a bit puzzled about that. But if you look it up somewhere else, they'll say it another way and it clicks. And so use an intermediate Greek grammar at least to start to work through and deepening your knowledge of the Greek. So that's the fourth thing, is work through a Greek grammar. Fifthly, read the Greek New Testament. And most people skip the first 3 or 4 of these steps and just go straight to here. And that's a mistake, because honestly, unless you're building your vocabulary, unless you know where you're going, unless you're continuing to build your knowledge of the language, reading the Greek New Testament is just going to be hard, right? And so you need to get into a practice of reading, but you need to do so with a bit of wisdom. And so you started reading, right? You started this trip down the path of learning Greek probably because you wanted to read. So just do that. Start doing that. And so reading will improve, or will help you understand the concepts you learned in beginning Greek much more clearly. It will help you to ensure that you don't lose the things you've already learned, because it's going to continually reinforce all of those things. And so I encourage you to get a reader's edition and start reading with one of those. Read slowly. Don't be frustrated that you can't read this quickly. That's actually not a bad thing, because when you read slowly, here's the thing, right? When we read the New Testament, when we read the Bible, we bring all our assumptions that come often from our English translations with us. And those English translations are often challenged when we start to read in Greek. So reading slowly allows you to work through the text, fit it together, and meditate on the changes and the distinctions that you get from the Greek text. So read slowly and embrace the slow reading. And read it meditatively. And so then look also, as you're going through your intermediate Greek grammar, go through in your New Testament reading, as you're reading the New Testament, look for the principles you've read in the intermediate grammar. And then once you've done that and you've been through the New Testament, reread, right? You start with the beginning Greek, maybe an easy textbook like 1 John, and reread it once you've finished it, and then go on to a slightly harder book and reread it once you've finished it. And so by rereading again, you'll reinforce your knowledge of that language. And once you're down a few books down the track, go back and reread those early books again, and you won't be quite as familiar with them as you were the first time, and you will again start to really enjoy that. So that's the 5 steps, or 5 Things to do once you've finished beginning Greek. First, know that there's still a lot to learn. Second, set a goal. Have a clear outcome you're aiming for. Thirdly, keep working on your vocabulary. Fourth, work through an intermediate Greek grammar. And fifth, read the Greek New Testament. So I'm Daryl Burling, creator of Mathewson Greek. I help people just like you to learn to read the Greek New Testament fluently. If that sounds helpful to you, go ahead and click the subscribe button below. And if you're on YouTube, click the bell button to ensure you get notified when new videos come out. Now, if you're beginning Greek, you want to go back and look at the last video that I posted, which was, what do I need to expect if I'm going to learn Greek? So go check that video out. I'll leave a link below as well. I want to ask you also to leave a comment below. Tell me, what's your goal in learning Greek? Why did you go through seminary? Why did you learn Greek in the first place? What was your purpose? What did you want to achieve at the end of it? Was it exegesis? Was it to be able to read the Greek New Testament fluently? Was it to be able to read more broadly in Koine Greek? What was it? Let me know in the comments below, and I'd love to interact with you there. And I look forward to seeing you in the next video.